Hello and what's going on, guys? Mangumson here, bringing you another First Descendant video, and today I want to be talking about Viessa. We're talking about some Viessa builds. We're going to go over some things, some ups and some downs about Viessa. Now, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat anything for you guys. Viessa needs all the help in the world that she can get. I like Viessa. I like her kit. I like her overall toolkit. I wish her one was like an ice beam. I want to say that was like that in beta. It was kind of like an ice beam, wasn't an ice shard type of deal. That would have been cool. But nonetheless, you need everything to be hitting on all cylinders with this character. Now you can look at the build real quick, right? So there's some tweaking I need to do for cold-blooded. I've seen some YouTubers put some videos online. I've seen videos come out where she's carrying the the secret garden, skating around doing void sigma sector. I'm not gonna sit here and bore you guys with void sigma sector stuff. If I wanted Viessa to be good in void sigma sector, that's about as good as me putting a build out there saying that Viessa is good in 400% dungeons. Yeah, I mean, just about anybody, even a Jaybird, can get it done. But all in all, you want to use Viessa in other types of content. You want to use Viessa in content that's going to be fun for you. You want to go battle the Void Abyss. You want to, probably not the Void Abyss. Don't go in there trying to fight Tormentor with Viessa unless you got like a cracked out ATAMs or something that's doing all the heavy lifting. But you at least wanted to get through Void Erosion Purge. Now I've looked at the leaderboards for Void Erosion Purge, right? So shout out to any people who are in this top list for the Void Erosion Purge for Ultimate Viessa. Currently I sit at 310, not doing the best, not doing the best at all for stage 25 in Viessa. But I'm trying to make a I'm trying to make a less than popular weapon be used for what I'm trying to get through. Now I can make Viessa fairly better, right? I do believe that every character should have a type of weapon that goes with them, right? And then in my experience, I point that at the clairvoyance. Ever since I've seen the clairvoyance and what it actually reads, which is kind of stupid, because the appalled calling, that's what I'm pretty sure it's called. The appalled calling, this effect is considered to be the same as frostbite in some modes. That thing just needs to say it just needs to be frostbite. It would really work with her kit more. Or if it says something about chill and frostbite, it doesn't need to be treated as or considered as frostbite. It needs to be frostbite. I think Destiny had this issue with some things that was kind of, this is treated as this but not considered that. Or it was like this, it was the stasis overshields before they finally fixed that like 5 years later. That was, you get a stasis overshield and it was a stasis overshield, but it wasn't a void overshield. But you had a build that went into overshields, but it wasn't considered an overshield if it was in the stasis thing, because they conflicted with each other because the wording wasn't correct. It wasn't the same thing doing something, right? If you're gonna have this thing do anything unique, it needs to be within itself instead of being considered something else. Right now I'm getting on a tangent. But Viessa, again, this is my baby girl, and I like Viessa. I like her kit, I like what she's doing, I like her fit, and overall she's about as good as Blair. Right? I like Blair, he's cool. I like Flames. You know, one of my favorite characters in My Hero Academia is like Todoroki. I think that's his name. He has the fire, he has the ice. He kind of, you know, he's not a master at both, but he kind of masters them both. Like, anyway, but you just like this whole build right here, not the cold-bloodedness. Let's go to the absolute zero one. There could probably be a whole video in its own right, but I'm not here to waste your time. The absolute zero build puts out damage. It does what I need it to do, but it just doesn't do enough, right? So I'm guessing that's where the arcade tuning comes in, to put characters up there that is going to be more in line with other characters that will do a way better job with less effort. The overall thing that I can see what Viessa is that it's almost like her kit is supposed to go into like get some shield regen back, go in, freeze the enemy, slow down their movement, do a lot of damage, create a blizzard when there's a lot of enemies in the area. It's like you're acing the hole. That isn't how it ends up. That doesn't end up how it ends up going. None of the times. You'll go out there, and currently sitting at 21,000 defense, 600 shield, 11,000 health. For any other character, that's more than enough, man. That's fair. That's good around the board. When you start getting into void erosion purge, you start bumping into some walls there. You end up getting hit a little bit, and then bam, okay, there goes your shield. Shields are gone. We don't care about that. We got high enough health. And then when we get into battling enemies, they're picking at us so fast that I feel like I need like 34,000 health. I mean, not 34,000 health, that would be nice too, but 34,000 defense. Well, then I start tanking a little bit more shots, but again, I'm not putting out all that damage. So I could go back to the board, right? Take off. So some people look at the build and be like, all right, we'll take off lethal infection. You don't need that. That's maybe for poison. It's not for poison. Lethal infection is actually for when you land a firearm crit hit on an enemy inflicted with a debuff, skill power modifier, 5% for 10 seconds, stacks up to 10. And I can show you some background gameplay of what that looks like if we go over to the training area. If I was to take that off. Now, it's going to take my damage overall from a mediocre 600 and maybe 603,000 damage, and it's going to bring my blizzard up to a total amount of like 900,906, something like that, of that nature. So thinking about that, you would think that the overall build itself would be considered good. It would be considered okay. So we'll load up the laboratory settings. We're primarily doing the void erosion purge stuff, so I'm looking for an enemy that's weak to ice. So this is intentional. Put the level up there, spawn the Vogus in. All right, gain the invincibility. Now regularly when I do this move, it's going to do its ticks, and the blizzard works in a specific sort of way to where it does its damage based off of how long the enemy is like in and out of the blizzard. It's kind of a weird deal with that whole skill. But if I was to hit the enemy with a debuff, which would be the applied calling, something akin to frostbite, and then I end up getting that up to a +10, my lethal infection. I think that's what it's called. It's called lethal infection. Yeah, lethal infection. And then I use my skill. It dramatically increases my skill damage for that period of time. So I've already cast it. It's got like a snapshot type of deal that it did. So I do get the increased damage. The lethal infection is on there for a reason. I just don't have it just sitting there for no apparent reason. Now you'd be thinking, okay, why would I do all that when what? Okay, I'm on cooldown. So I wonder why she was stuck in an animation for the gun. It wasn't quite reset yet, but it does a fair amount of damage. It ain't game breaking numbers. It ain't out there doing Serena numbers. But again, she's good, but she's not all that good. Now I go into the arcade tuning. I could completely focus on one side about going damage, or I could focus on one side about survivability. If the enemies die, then I won't have to worry about them damaging me. So my thought process was, not right here, not reflected on the screen, but if I do more damage, I will get more bang for my buck. But then I'm thinking, okay, cool. I could go in there with this character with what is her name? Viessa. I could go in there with Viessa and try to knock this thing out. I've seen people try to do it with Inez. But the issue that most people are having, I want to say, with Void Erosion Purge is, for one, I'm not that guy. A lot of people out there are that guy. They've knocked out Void Erosion, and I put out this video a little bit longer than I wanted to, talking about Viessa and her build. But it does stage 26 fairly well. but not well enough for me to get past 26. It's at that sort of state. So I'm feeling like, okay, my gun's not really the thing that I want to be going with, or I need to max everything out. All in all, if I went with the meta and I picked any other gun to invest into that would probably do me way more justice, go put the last dagger on, to turn that weapon into a cold monster, start shooting that up. And then why am I playing Viessa? Then I might as well go ahead and switch to Glade. Then I go over to Glade and I build her out, and then I knock out the Void Erosion Purge that way. That's not what I want to do, because I want to play with Viessa. Now, again, the clairvoyance that I have here, I have the clairvoyance all linked up and kitted out to do, in my opinion, the max amount of damage that I would like to do with this gun. The better insight, better concentration, the gun really performs well when it's doing critical hits. Regular damage, it ain't doing too hot. And then the bullet integration is going to give me more crit hit damage, and it's going to give me more firearm attack. The chill enhancement gives me more bang for my buck, because once I invest into chill and the chill priority giving me more of that chill, these numbers really don't reflect the damage that it's actually doing. It's doing a decent amount of damage. I want to say that you can see that here. Once let's do this. Let's see. You see my spray and pray is actually activated. I'm doing a continuous burst stream with the clairvoyance, and the clairvoyance will put out a decent amount of damage, even though the gun isn't maxed out. It does about 6 mil. This is a maxed out, capped out Vulgus here at 260 level, but again, I'm specifically targeting the enemy that is weak to ice and weak to slice or pierce, and I'm looking to do the max amount of damage to that specific type of enemy. That is the goal here. But in order to melt this enemy down in a Void Erosion Purge, for one, they would have to be a stationary target, just about as dumb as this guy sitting in front of me. But enemies aren't like that. Any old enemy that I come across, I'm doing big damage. I'm putting out big numbers. I want to pop up something here on the screen of me doing a Void Erosion run, and you can see what the rest I'm talking about. And I'm doing the damage, I'm knocking the enemies out, but then Viessa just can't survive. So this is less of a build guide video, but more of a, if you do decide to play this character, play her in this way. There are 3 different builds for Viessa. Absolute Zero, which is a crit build. It does give you extra crit amount of damage here. The skill crit hit rate increase is an extra 20%. So that makes up for some crit hit rate that you're going to lose when you're not going fully into crit hit rate. You're going for crit hit damage. So this is going to put out the damage with that. Chill Master to give you that extra boost. Front lines, emergency measures, skill concentration. This is going to be your bread and butter, and you want the nimble fingers for the cooldown. All this is fine and dandy. You start getting into hypothermia. Hypothermia is going to be a skill to where you're going to want to be doing your damage over time like Freyna, but you're not as good as Freyna. So you'll use it, it's going to be cool, it's going to be cool looking, but you're not going to keep up with Freyna. You're not. I appreciate what they're trying to do, but honestly, the skill multiplier on the hypothermia, when you equip it, it needs to be modified. That needs to get into like the thousands, like 2,000 base when you put on hypothermia. That would be the only way I'm seeing that being a transcendent, because you're not putting out enough tick damage fast enough to kill the enemies you're actually inflicted with hypothermia. If that makes sense. Now, cold-bloodedness. This is what people crutch on. This is what people love. People absolutely love cold-bloodedness. It takes away my ice roads. I don't like that. The way that Viessa is played, for the most part, is when I'm backpedaling, enemies are running at me because they run in a straight line for some reason, like we're playing Call of Duty Zombies. They all run into the ice roads and they take all that extra damage. Cold-bloodedness takes that out of the fight, but then you get reduced cooldowns. But cold-bloodedness does not give you increased skill power modifier base increase. It just reduces your cooldowns by 20%. So you're thinking, okay, so I'm getting a faster cooldown to use my blizzard more, but you've already invested in more cooldown for the blizzard. So the blizzard gets down to about 19 seconds. and 20% off of that, you're looking at about maybe a 13 to an 11-second cooldown, and it feels great. But again, you're not putting out the damage. You will literally have to be emergency measures, skill concentration, front lines, and so skill concentration and skill insight. So you're knocking out lethal infection. Lethal infection is gone, but you lose a gang of damage from losing that. Then you're like thinking, okay, well, I'll gut one of my defensive things. And then when you got one of those defensive things, you end up dying a lot. 400 percenters, Sigma Sector, Viessa, not bad. But a overall view of Viessa is her transcendents aren't transcendent enough to move the needle, and her arcade tuning side definitely feels like it has to go more into defense, or you get good, right? I ain't good enough. That's what it comes down to. I'm not good enough because obviously I'm investing into more survivability, which I feel like I should probably, I'm gonna move the needle the other way and try to go with more attack power, maybe more skill power modifier. But I still feel like I don't like being completely vulnerable to bosses. Again, I don't like running glass cannon builds. I like to have survivability in my builds, and eventually I'll make it past Void Erosion Purge 26, maybe with a different character, maybe who knows. But Viessa, we're gonna revisit this later. We're gonna revisit this topic of Viessa later and come back to it. We're gonna make Viessa great, if not great. Well, we're gonna make her good enough, and then I'll give you the full expert breakdown of Viessa and her builds. So if you guys did enjoy the video and did enjoy the way that I went over this, I didn't want to get into too many fancy edits, but I wanted to talk to you real about the situation. Clickbaity other YouTubers would come into the picture and tell you that she's the greatest thing out there since sliced bread, and she can skate around the battlefield like blades of glory. But in all reality, she's good enough, but the weapon that feels like it should be for her isn't good enough to keep up with the rest of the game. But they are going to sell us more skins, so probably be happy about that, I suppose. I will find the appropriate weapon for her. If I got to put the clairvoyance down and take out my Albion cavalry and crack that out, or go to the old reliable of Enduring Legacy in order to get past Void Erosion 26, I'll have to do what I got to do. Everyone knows Enduring Legacy's cracked out, man. It's like one of the best guns in the game. From the moment that I seen it, my heart started to flutter. It's always been a good gun, but I digress. Check out the other videos on the channel. Check out the reactive video that could be on the channel already by now. Check out the Wales only video. That's where I go over what to buy in the shop, what's good, what's bad, what's new, and what's hot. And until then, I will see you in the next one.